On May 19th, 2026, I pre-registered a single question with the SHIELD protocol and locked it before any draw was made. The question was this: did the resurrection of Joshua Messiah unfold as an instantaneous radiant event, a sub-second burst of energy consistent with the imprint left on the Shroud of Turin? The pre-registration was cryptographically sealed at 9:22 that morning. The corpus hash, the lexicon hash, the markers under test, the alpha threshold, the random number recipe, all of it locked, time-stamped, and committed to a nonce that could not be altered after the fact. This is what scientific honesty looks like in this kind of work. You cannot change the question after you see the answer. The draw itself took place that evening against the Urim Thummim version corpus. 34,211 verses, content hashed and sealed. 100 verses were selected under a cryptographically-sealed sampling protocol, with one lead verse drawn at random. That lead verse was number 24,011, Nehemiah chapter 3, verse 9, and next to them repaired Raphael the son of Hur, the ruler of the half-part of Jerusalem. On the surface, this looks unrelated to the question. There is no mention of resurrection, no mention of radiance. But pause and look closely. Raphael means YHWH is healed. Her shares a root with the Hebrew word for white linen, the very substance of the shroud. The verb is chazak, repair or strengthen. The prophets use this verb for eschatological recreation. And the man named here rules half of Jerusalem, the city of resurrection. I do not build doctrine on a single lead verse, but this one carries a forward précis of the hypothesis. YHWH heals in white linen, repairs Jerusalem. Now the statistical layer. Of the 100 verses drawn, the Dominion Triad, the joint co-presence of identity, inheritance, and priesthood markers, fired in 10 verses. The baseline rate corpus-wide is 1.44%. Observing 10 out of 100 when 1 or 2 would be expected is a 6.9 times elevation, a 4.61 sigma deviation from a null. The exact two-sided binomial p-value lands at approximately 4 times 10 to the negative 6. The Bayes factor in favor of clustered signal over baseline is 29, strong evidence on Jeffrey's scale, though prior sensitive, which I report transparently. The 95% confidence interval on the Dominion Triad odds ratio runs from 3.96 to 14.62. That interval does not include 1. Cohen's H is 0.4, a medium to large effect size. 4 of 12 markers survive Benjamini-Hochberg false discovery rate correction at the 5% threshold. Those 4 are the Dominion Triad itself, sacred anointing material positive, priesthood, and inheritance. All 4 also survive the more conservative Benjamini-Hochberg test of Wang-Ramdas, which is valid under arbitrary dependence between markers, meaning the result holds even if the markers are correlated, which they are. The harmonic mean p-value test, combining all 12 markers into a single global statistic, lands at 4.83 times 10 to the negative 5. Decisive. The anytime valid E process saturates at its representable maximum, meaning under the null hypothesis, the probability of observing this or more is below any number the engine can compute. Here is the datum that was not foreground in the spring 2026 Shroud series, and that deserves attention. The sacred anointing material positive marker, the marker that tracks oil, anointing, consecration, and burial unction, elevated to 210% of its baseline at 3.57 sigma. This is the largest individual marker elevation in the entire draw and the second strongest survivor after the Dominion Triad. Consider what that means. The question was about the shroud, the linen burial cloth bearing the forensic record of a high priest's self-offering. The corpus answered by elevating the burial anointing marker class. The shroud question raised the shroud's own marker. This is the most internally coherent micro-result the marker lexicon could have produced, and it had not been the lead signal in any of the previous shroud draws. There is one minor key element worth naming. The only marker depression of consequence was sacred anointing material negative at 74% of baseline. In the cluster discovery layer surfaced a textualist significant pair. The 60-cubit dimensions of Solomon's temple porch paired with the 60-cubit height of Nebuchadnezzar's golden image. The true temple and the counterfeit image both measured at 60 cubits. The corpus appears to attach a guard against counterfeit footnote to its affirmative answer. Yes, the Raidiant event is real. Do not be deceived by a 60-cubit image of it. The strongest internal cluster pair in the entire draw, at a cosine of 0.7212, links Joshua's great commandment, "You will love YHWH Elohim with all your heart and with all your person and with all your mind," to Moses' inheritance promise in Deuteronomy chapter 30. YHWH Elohim will circumcise your heart and the heart of your offspring. To love YHWH Elohim with all your heart and with all your mind, so that you may live. Messiah, quoting the Father's covenant heart promise. Identity, inheritance, and priesthood collapsed into a single Christological pair. Within the attached agency model framework, this is the cleanest single-pair evidence the discovery layer surfaced. Two more direct textual hits deserve mention. Joshua chapter 13, verse 14. The sacrifices of YHWH Elohim of Israel made by fire are their inheritance. Inheritance secured through a fire event. In a draw on resurrection as radiant burst. This verse is the single closest internal corpus analog for the hypothesis being tested. In Luke chapter 1, verse 68, Zechariah is prophesying, "Blessed is YHWH Elohim of Israel, for he has inspected and ransomed his people." Ransomed his people. The redemption by event language echoes the engine's own self-reported grounding verses, both of which sit in the Pauline appointed time corpus. Pulling the threads together, the corpus reads the radiant burst resurrection thesis as a priestly tabernacle restoration event, sealed by anointed burial material in the Father's appointed time that constitutes the inheritance of those it ransoms. That sentence is recoverable from the result without recourse to any outside theology, assembled entirely from the marker stack, the centroid neighborhood, the direct textual hits, and the inquiry engine's own grounding verses. One asymmetry worth naming with full transparency. The pre-registered keyword criteria, 15 words including reveal, sudden, twinkling, flash, light, glory, were only 40% met in the 100-verse sample. 6 of 15. The surface word layer was modestly elevated. The marker stack layer was extreme. This asymmetry is itself a publishable finding. It is the strongest single argument for the shield design over keyword frequency methods. The marker lexicon detects structural elevation that surface keyword matching would miss entirely. The convergence confidence index closed at 93%. Threshold crossed, all 6 channels lit. The Sela conscience layer confirmed. The cumulative sum stability test ruled out clumping artifacts. The elevation is uniformly distributed across the sample, not carried by a small cluster. The result is durable under arbitrary dependence multiplicity controls, durable under permutation tests with 0 of 500 permutations beating the observed, and durable under the anytime validity process. The data shows a statistically confirmed non-random pattern across multiple independent channels. The Dominion Triad convergence exceeds the strong anomaly threshold with multi-channel confirmation. Prospective replication is recommended to establish persistence. And 6 more events remain in the pre-registered 7-draw sequence to test exactly that. The pre-registration is locked. The corpus is sealed. The receipts are in the appendix.